Hello, this is Don Victor, author of Drawn to Win, host of the podcast Drawn to Win, the director of the Academy of Composition, and the creator of the Core 80 Experience, also known as the See and Grow Rich in Art video course, which you can find out more information at core80.com. This is the Drawn to Win podcast, where I have the incredible privilege to draw artists from around the world into fun and meaningful conversations around art and life, and yes, maybe even a little food. You can hear us each week on iTunes, Stitcher, SoundCloud, and YouTube. So make sure you subscribe so you always have a seat among friends. Let's get into the show. Hey, Mark. Welcome to the conversation on the podcast today.
Thank you very much, Don.
You're welcome. So, this will be a cool conversation. You're in the East Coast.
Yep.
Where are you located?
The People's Republic of Massachusetts.
Is that really what it's called?
Yeah, sure.
That's interesting. Okay.
No, I like Massachusetts.
I've been there like through it. I once went to a party up there for a weekend, and my kids were already here and all that stuff. So it was like a family of the wife at the time, and remember it was very interesting. We had the police come.
Oh,
yeah.
Well, one of those parties. Okay.
Yeah. It was when you have little Latin parties. A lot of times they're like lots and lots of fun, lots and lots of drinking, and then at some point it's just too much, and then
the police arrive.
Yeah. So I was like, oh, okay. I've never experienced this before.
People don't know this about Massachusetts. We have our own version of the Grand Canyon.
What? Really?
It's called Purgatory Chasm.
Okay.
And Purgatory Chasm is about a 150 feet deep chasm that was formed when an ice dam broke 10,000 years ago. And the water rushed through and threw big rocks all over the place. And it's our answer to the Grand Canyon. So we really do have everything in here, besides being the hub of the universe.
The hub of the universe.
Yeah.
Wow. Well, I have a comment to say about that, but I'm going to keep it to myself. I don't want to offend anyone. That's interesting, man. That's very cool. I didn't know that. That's really, really cool.
There's lots of pretty stuff to paint here.
Have you been there your whole life?
I was born in Detroit.
Ah, interesting.
Moved to Stamford, Connecticut when I was 4. Mm-hmm. Grew up in Stamford and moved up here 35, 40 years ago.
Wow.
Close to 40 years ago. Met my future wife. And you got time for one of those stories?
Sure.
A friend of mine was living in his aunt's house. It was a 3-story Victorian, and he'd just gotten hold of it. So I came up to visit him, and there was a snowstorm, but there was no way I was going to let that snowstorm prevent me from going to visit him, because boy, was I ready to get out of Stamford. This is after I got out of school. So I caught the train up to Boston, and he met me at the train station. We caught the last trolley out to Newton, Massachusetts, and we started walking home the day after the blizzard of 78.
Okay.
So we were walking through waist-deep snowdrifts about 2 miles to get to his house. And along the way, he said, oh, let's stop off at this house. These people will give us a nice cup of tea. So we went in, and there was a middle-aged couple, and he introduced us, and they were very nice, and they gave us a cup of tea and sent us on our way. And that's how I met my future in-laws before I actually met my future wife.
What? That's awesome.
She was elsewhere that night, but I met them first. So I thought that was fun.
She wasn't somewhere else serving tea to some other guy, was she?
That's right.
Dang right. You only serve tea to me now. No, but that's I find that such a cool story. I mean, who the heck in America gives people tea?
Armenians.
Oh,
Yeah.
Shandalukuyu. Nice, man. That just sounds so cool. Um, Now Armenians, for some real reason, for some weird reason, I don't know why, but are they close to Turkey?
Oh, yeah. They're too close to Turkey.
Okay, okay.
Yeah. Well, where are you located, if I can ask?
Not near Turkey.
Not near, well,
No,
West
up
Coast?
Pennsylvania.
Oh, you're in Pennsylvania. Oh, so you're from around here.
Yeah.
You're not that far away. Uh, yeah, my wife's family has Armenian genocide stories that
Mm.
turn your hair white. Um, it was not a pretty sight. Um, they came over.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So it was the Turks that were wiping
Oh
them
yeah.
out?
Oh
Okay.
yeah. The Turks killed about 1.5 million
Yeah.
Armenians right after World War One.
Wow.
Um,
I know my very, very dear friend from Bulgaria. It was weird. I had a roommate from Turkey, Chan.
mm,
Tell you a funny story. Every morning he would wake up and he would scream the same thing over and over again every morning. And his morning ritual was, "It's so big," and I have no idea what he's talking about until like a weeks in. I realized, oh, he's talking about his. But
oh,
that was his morning chant, right? Like
oh, lovely.
his morning affirmation. It wasn't like soft to himself. No, he would wake us up, right? Um, but he was a very dear friend of mine, and then I had a very dear Bulgarian friend, and it was very interesting because hearing them talk and them being friends, they were saying that that's a very um, uh, strange thing to occur because the Turks came in and just brutalized the Bulgarians, and I'm assuming the Armenians as well. And I guess in Bulgaria they would show videos of what the Turks would do, and one of the things that he was saying is that they would come in, they would come into a village, take the men, lay them down, and put big poles basically between their legs, spikes, and then have the son hammer, basically impale their fathers. And it's just like, what the hell, you know?
Wow, this must have been like uh, 15th or 16th century, though. I mean,
That it's possible, but the way they were talking
Bulgaria.
about it didn't sound like it was.
Well,
Uh,
they have long memories over there. Yes.
yeah. Well, I guess they were enslaved by the Turks. Then I guess they were saying for a couple hundred years or whatnot.
Right.
So yeah, okay. And
Yeah.
it so
Nobody likes the Turks. Yeah.
well, secretly, I'm like,
Oh, okay.
okay. Anyways, I don't know enough, but for some reason, I look past the vampire, the Dracula stories and
Uh-huh.
everything. Anyways,
Yeah.
but so did you and your wife have many conversations over tea about things like that, or did you guys kind of like not talk about that too much?
I went along with him. I'm not a tea drinker. I'm a beer drinker. I'm a
So you
coffee
introduced her
drinker.
to beer?
Oh, I can't tell you that story.
Oh, okay.
Not beer. Uh,
Okay.
but no, my wife is an art teacher.
Oh, okay.
She runs the lower school art program at a private school
Mm,
in the area, and
nice.
she's a lot more on the ball than I am. So,
Okay. And how long have you guys been together?
35 years.
Wow,
We've
congratulations,
been
man.
married 35 years. I guess we were probably together longer.
Wow.
So, yeah, because I'm old.
I was gonna say, I mean, you're like, hey, we were walking in 1978, da da da,
Yeah,
and I'm like, I think I started walking in
in
1978.
1978.
I was like two. Um, but yeah. Uh, well, that's cool. That's cool. And back then, were you into the arts, or is that something that came later?
Oh,
Or
yes. I've always, well,
okay.
my mom was an art teacher.
No, wow.
So
So then they got along pretty well, huh?
we got along pretty well.
Nice.
And I grew up in Stamford, which was an hour's train ride from New York City. So, uh, I went in and I studied at the Art Students League, and I
Hmm.
went and go to the museums and even as a kid, would go into my mom was a sculptor. We'd go into New York, and she had a place where she bought her supplies, and we'd go over there. She did bronze work, so she had a deal with a local foundry. So I'd go with her to the foundry and watch them cast metal and help her patina her sculptures and weld them together. So yes, my mom was very encouraging of my interest in art.
That's cool, man. That's cool. When you met your wife, was she going to school to be a teacher, or was she already teaching at the time? Or
She was, I think I met her senior year in college. I'd been out for 2 years. And she managed a fabric store, and then she worked for a nonprofit called Very Special Arts Massachusetts for a couple of years. They would locate schools where the special needs kids were not getting art lessons, and send a teacher in there. So that was very nice. And then she started teaching after that, and she's been teaching for a long time.
Wow. Can I ask you a very interesting question? And you don't have to answer this, but then I'll send my cousin Vinny, and he'll get the answer out of you. For some reason, I'm thinking that Armenians are they mainly Christian, Catholic,
Oh, yes.
or are they Muslim?
Oh, no. Armenians are Christian. Armenian church is actually the oldest existing Christian church.
Okay.
You would say that it's like Russian Orthodox, although they get really upset when you say it's like Russian Orthodox or Greek Orthodox. They're their own thing. I think it's Armenian Apostolic.
Wow.
Actually, am I allowed to swear on this?
The podcast that we did earlier, we started with the F word. So
okay.
I think that's the theme today.
I got another story for you. My father-in-law was an engineer, and well, here's the thing. Armenian is a sacred language. There are no swear words in Armenian. Any Armenian will tell you. So they use Turkish ones instead. So he went to the Registry of Motor Vehicles, and he got a vanity license plate. And the vanity license plate said Sikdir, Sikdir. He told them that stood for Scientists in Knowledge Deal in Research. But it's actually Turkish for fuck you. So he very happily drove around. So now you know what your next vanity plate's going to be. He very happily drove around with his Sikdir license plate for maybe a year or two. And then my mother-in-law got the phone call from the registry. A Turkish gentleman saw your car and said that it's a profanity in Turkish. Oh my goodness! Oh, I had no idea. We'll take it off right away. So that was the end of that.
So that was pure vanity. Wow, that's pretty hilarious, man. And it's funny, like when you listen to the news, and they have, let's say it's English news, and they have like people from another country, sometimes Spanish or whatever, right? And those people are just swearing up a storm, but because people don't know, they just let it kind of slip through. That's funny. So Armenian Apostolic, I'm gonna have to go look that up because that just sounds
that's what
powerful.
they call it. And it's swinging censers around and incense and stuff like that. It's just like the Russian Orthodox ones, but
don't say that.
God help you if you say that to an.
Yeah, they're like, we came before the Russians.
Yes, yeah.
That's interesting, man. Very, very interesting. I like that kind of stuff. So what's your background then?
Well, I'm Jewish. So what that means is that my children are the most victimized people on the face of the earth.
And they eat afterwards.
My children have the Jewish Holocaust and the Armenian genocide in their backgrounds. They could be part Cambodian, I guess, but right now I'm pretty sure there's no one on earth who has more victimhood than my children. And I can't for the life of me figure out a way to make money off of it. It seems like I should be able to, but somehow I can't.
Dude, you're too funny, man. So hold on, man. That was funny. Okay. Wow. Interesting. Very interesting.
Not as interesting as it's been for being married to an Armenian, let me tell you. The food is awesome, though. Oh, sorry. Oh, that's for later.
Yeah,
that's
hold on to that
okay.
later.
We'll talk about Armenian food later. Yeah.
Oh my gosh, unless you want to do it now. No. So Mark, in terms of art, what are you currently working on, man?
Well, what I'm currently working on is I'm just going out and painting landscapes.
Mm-hmm.
And it's finally landscape season, so I can finally grab my stuff, put it in the car, go for a ride, and set up my easel and do a painting. And that's pretty much what I do.
Nice.
I paint anything. I don't necessarily paint it well, but I paint anything as long as it's right there in front of me, I'll do a painting of it. And that's pretty much how I work. Now, I will say, I got laid off from my, this is the other thing is I do architectural illustration to make a living.
Oh, wow. That's cool.
So, unfortunately, I was laid off from my job a couple of years ago, and I'm having trouble finding work. But at the time, I was working in Harvard Square, and I would actually love to go back and do this some more. I became really interested. Have you ever been in Harvard Square when you came up with your for your visit? It's a very funky place. I mean, it's an exciting countercultural experience. And there are lots of panhandlers. There are lots of beggars. And they all have their little shticks. And I became very interested in them. And for about 5 years, and then I was like, and the other thing is I like to paint portraits. And I was feeling like I really need to paint some portraits. How can I paint some portraits? And so I just had the idea, I'll give these folks $10 to pose for me, and I'll do a painting of them. So I did work on that series for about 5 years. It's called Panhandlers of Harvard Square. You can see it on my website. And basically, I would just come up to somebody and say, I'm doing a series of paintings of the Panhandlers in Harvard Square. Can I set up my easel? I'll give you $10. And almost always, not always, but almost always, they'd say, sure. And then people started talking to me. Don't know why. And so they would tell me their stories. So I started writing down the stories that went along with the faces.
That's cool.
And now I have 57 paintings.
Did you publish it?
Actually, I did. I did a vanity publishing thing. I'd be happy to send you a book.
Nice. Very cool.
Actually, let me say that because you go to lulu.com. It's a vanity publishing thing. And go to lulu.com and do a search for Panhandlers of Harvard Square, and you can buy my book. But you can also look at it on my webpage.
Panhandlers of Harvard.
Yeah, LULU. Panhandlers of Harvard Square.
Yep. Lulu.com. I like Lulu.com.
Okay. That's another. Okay.
Yeah. That's cool, man. That's really, really cool. My Bulgarian friend, that's what he also did when he was studying. He would find some poor people on the street, and then he would take them in and feed them, and they would become his models because he just loved like the wear and tear on their bodies, the age, especially older people. And he would do 1,000 sketches a week, like just it was insane. But I was looking through his sketches, and there was this one old guy just constantly in his sketches that he, became his model, But, so I think that's maybe we should start a thing, like homeless model.
Homeless model, yeah. Air homeless model, okay.
Yeah. Air homeless mom. Um, Interesting. Uh, so you're plein air painting now. You were doing the architectural renderings. Now,
Mhm.
was that for an architecture firm, or was that for real estate
Yeah,
companies, or?
I work for a series of architectural firms. I've also worked for myself on a freelance basis. That's kind of what I'm doing now, except it's not making enough. I'm not making enough money to pay the bills, so
I feel you.
that's no fun.
No, it's um, no, like you have those on your website too.
That's a different website.
Oh, tell me what it is. I want to check it out.
Okay, yeah, my architectural graphics is on. I have to explain. My two daughters' names are Emily and Sarah. Emalie and Sara. The name of my quote unquote company is Emissary Graphics because I took Emily and Sarah and squished them together and got Emissary. EMASARY.com. Emissary.com.
That's cool. I like the way you think. Um, Emissary graphics. Okay, 2D graphics, color for renderings. Residential religious. Oh, shoot, dude. So these are computer generated.
Oh yeah, I couldn't
Okay,
do it by hand. No.
gotcha. Oh, wow. That's cool, man.
Well, thank you.
It's very cool. Um, wow, you did a lot. Well, this is what you did for a living.
Yeah, this is what I've been doing it for a long time. Yeah.
It'd be kind of cool, like do these and then put some paper over and just do a line drawing.
Yeah, but well, now you're gonna. I mean, if I'm gonna do artwork,
Mm-hmm.
I don't see that as artwork. That's the thing. Is
Oh,
that
okay.
it's commercial art. It's not fine art, and I have no trouble separating those two. And you know what? If somebody said to me, well, I'll tell you honestly, if somebody said to me, "I like this. Can I get it as a hand sketch?" I use SketchUp. Are you familiar with that
I,
program?
I've never used it, but I know what it
Yeah,
is.
I use SketchUp, and SketchUp comes with like a million different styles, and they do a very good job of making your your 3D model look like a hand drawing.
Oh, wow, cool.
So um, that's probably what I would do. But if they wanted me to do it the other way, sure, I can do that too. Anything for money. So
So these are then done three dimensionally
mhm,
on a computer.
right,
Um, wow. So really, then you have to like this is probably a lot harder than drawing it because you actually have to
model
um,
it. Yeah.
model it. Yeah, that's interesting. Wow, very cool. Very cool. Now the rendering is probably a lot easier because you just tell it the
Yeah.
sun's over
Well, that's
here
it.
and boom.
Well, um, I'm going to say 15 years ago,
Hmm.
I did an animation for a client, and it was 15 years ago. I did an animation for a client, and I did it in AutoCAD using a program called AccuRender. And he had an office with 10 computers in it.
Hmm.
And for a month, I came over every night and set up a different section of animation on each computer. So that I had 10 computers running at once, and it took 2 or 3 weeks to render everything.
Hmm.
That was 15 years ago. Today, I could do that exact same rendering on one computer in a week.
Wow.
I mean, it's not instantaneous, but the computers are just that much faster to the point that I feel guilty charging people more for an animation where it really doesn't take that long to create an animation these days.
Yeah,
Uh,
that's why you know they say don't charge per hour mentality. It's
mhm.
for the results. It's like the people want this desired result, and can you achieve that? And then you get paid for that rather than because there is a guilt, there's a story of this couple and their furnace breaks, and so the
Mhm.
guy comes over and they take him down to the furnace, and he looks around and looks, and he takes out his hammer and whack, and boom, fixes the furnace, right? And then he charges them $100,
Mhm.
and they're like, "What? What do you mean you charge us $100? You just came over and like you just hit that." And they're like, "It's like, well, I'm not charging you for hitting it. I'm charging you for knowing where to hit it."
Yeah,
You
yeah,
know, and that only took 30 years to figure out.
yeah. Well, that's how it works.
So yeah, this is cool stuff. I know, like in comic books now, they'll use 3D modeling and to lay out cities and
Uh-huh. Yeah.
places. Just because it does so much problem solving, and then they can just go draw their characters and stuff with inside of it.
Yeah, and again, you were talking about, it's so much faster to do a rendering. You do the model. Once you've done a model, you can set up multiple views
Yep.
and render multiple views, and it just doesn't take that long. So I actually now when I taking a job like that, what I'll say is this price includes 4 renderings.
Mm-hmm.
Additional renderings will be charged at $50 each. And the only reason for that is because they go, oh, yeah, well, give me 20 renderings. And I can give them 20 renderings, but I really don't want to give it away quite that much. So,
Yeah.
anyway.
Yeah, makes sense. Very cool. Very cool. Uh, when you're doing the renderings and now you're doing the plein air, is there a similar way of thinking, or is it just two
Oh,
totally
no, no,
different?
no, it's totally different. When I'm doing the renderings, I mean, I'm usually I'm working off of floor plans, a site plan, an architect's elevations, and I take all that stuff and it goes where it goes. When I'm painting plein air, I mean, it goes where it's supposed to go. If it doesn't go where it was supposed to go, you have a problem. When I'm painting in oils, outdoors or indoors or whatever,
Mm-hmm.
I'm just responding to what I'm seeing. I
Okay.
look at it and I go, oh, I got to mix that color. I mix that color. Where does that go? Is there anywhere else I can use that color? Put it down there. What about this? I mean, it's just a completely different way of thinking.
Would you say one of the differences is that with the architectural rendering, you're thinking from the inside out, and where you're doing the plein air, you're thinking from the outside? And,
Yeah, I mean, the architectural rendering it's a task. It's something that you do because that's your job.
gotcha.
The painting is it's a joy. Nobody forces you to paint. So I
Yeah.
I don't look at my painting and go, oh my God, that's not right.
Mm-hmm.
That's not right. I can't do that. People will notice. I don't care whether they notice. And I all you can do is the best you can. And if you've done the best you can and there's something wrong with it, well, you fix it on the next one. You do another one.
Yeah. When you went to university, did you go for fine arts then?
Yes, I did. I actually have my MFA, my
Wow.
master's. I went to, now you say you're from Pennsylvania. I went to Tyler School of Art, Temple University in Philadelphia.
Yeah.
And,
My sister lives right down the street from there.
but when I went long, long ago, it was, I'm trying to remember where it was. It was like Chestnut Hill or something. It was off.
Yeah.
It
Yeah.
was
That's
down in
the
the city.
yeah. It was that's where she lives, and it's
Oh, okay.
So I was walking. We were walking one night down that street. I think it's Beach
mm,
Street or something. And we came to the end, and it was like, oh, Tyler School of Art, but it doesn't exist there anymore. I think
right.
it's like
And
an
yeah.
administration building now, or whatever.
Which I don't understand because it was when I went there in 1972 or 3, it was a brand new campus. And in fact, the reason that I went there was because they had state-of-the-art facilities, and everything. They had state-of-the-art. They had a working foundry, and I was casting bronze for 13 cents a pound, which is unheard of. And they had an excellent printmaking studio, and so it was the facilities itself that really made me go there. That, and I had a full scholarship. So
that helps.
yeah. So I went there, and then I got my MFA in Boston at Boston University.
Okay. Do you go to the Boston Museum there?
I do. I go to the MFA, the Boston Museum of Fine Arts, is incredibly overpriced. However, Wednesday nights are free, so I go on Wednesday nights and go in and check out the shows. And they say, "Oh, it's would you like to make a contribution?" And I say, "No," and I go in. The last show I saw there was there were a couple of shows. There was the Egon Schiele.
Wow.
And what's the other guy's name? I'm drawing a blank on his other name, but that was very good. There was a Mark Rothko show that made me very sad because I walked in and very low light conditions. And the reason for the low light conditions is that the man used really crappy paint, and all his paintings are fading. There was he did a series of paintings for Harvard University, and I actually saw those on display in Harvard University, and they had them in an almost pitch black room, and they had projectors projecting the original colors onto the paintings because the paintings were that badly ruined by exposure to sunlight, because he was using real pretty colors that faded in sunlight. And so to be honest with you, in 100 years, nobody's going to be able to look at those paintings because there won't be anything left. They'll have destroyed themselves. The same thing is happening with Jackson Pollock paintings. I was reading an article. Every morning, the curators go out and pick up all the little paint chips that have fallen off the Jackson Pollock paintings overnight and take them away so that they can glue them back on later on. They're not archival. And maybe you don't care about that, but I think you should. But there's a lot of modern art that won't be around simply because people said, "Oh, we don't have to worry about that. We're modern. We're abstract artists. We don't have to worry about that." And they should worry about it. It's kind of shocking, actually.
I always said that I stopped complaining about it years ago because when I think generationally, I'm like, yeah, they'll be forgotten. And now I guess they literally will be forgotten because they're disintegrating.
Well, it's like Julian Schnabel. I mean, at least those guys are dead. Julian Schnabel is still around, and his paintings are falling off the canvas in people's living rooms. You know, and apparently he said, "Oh, well, I knew that was going to happen. That's part of the piece." But if you paid $80,000 for an original Julian Schnabel and it's now falling apart and lying in a pile of dust under the frame, I personally would be kind of pissed. But that's the issue. That's one of the issues that concerns me is doing the paintings right.
Yeah. Well, that's interesting. That's really interesting. Are there other museums in the area that you like to go to?
Yes. That's the MFA. There is the Isabella Stewart Gardner Museum. It's a beautiful museum. It's an original building. She gave it. And this is where there was the huge Rembrandt art heist
Okay.
ago. Um, and she left it to the city of Boston with the stipulation that nothing was to be changed. And unfortunately, I think that includes the light bulbs because some of those rooms are awfully dark. But she does have have a beautiful collection of Renaissance, 17th, 18th century art. 19th century, her taste wasn't that good, although she did collect Sargent. Um, but that's a good museum to go to. Worcester has a very nice art museum. Let's see, what are some of the other ones? Well, Harvard has a bunch of art museums
Okay.
that are worth visiting. They also have the Harvard Natural History Museum. Is a wonderful museum. Have you ever heard of the glass flowers? Now you have similar things down in Philadelphia, I guess, with the there's a pathology museum from a 19th century surgeon down there. But
Oh, really?
oh
That sounds
yeah,
cool.
I don't have the book, and I'm drawing a blank on his name, but some really gruesome stuff. But the Harvard Natural History Museum, part of the collection is called the glass flowers. And in the late 19th century, there were a couple of European craftsmen who came over and they were hand making glass replicas of flowers and plants. And they're all on display at the Harvard Natural History Museum. And they're pretty amazing. I mean, you look at it and go, that's a that's a lily, except it isn't. It's glass. It just looks exactly like a lily, in every respect. And they also have specimens in jars, that kind of thing. So that's kind of fun to see that still around. Let me see.
That's freaky, man.
Oh yeah, that's worth a visit.
It looks
After you go to Purgatory Chasm. Yeah.
They look like the real flowers.
Oh, you're looking at it now?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And they're just
Yes.
glass. And they're made out of glass. Wow.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's
They are
incredible.
Yeah.
I almost don't believe it.
Mm-hmm.
Like, they're like, look at this flower. It's a wilting glass. Wow, that's incredible. That's really cool. So right now you're working on the plein air.
Mm-hmm.
What's a project that you want to work on that you haven't gotten to yet, but that you want
to? I really want to go back to painting the panhandlers.
Mm-hmm.
In terms of a large scale project, well, you know what I would really like to do? I'd like to win the lottery and have unlimited funds, and then I would go on the painting trip to end all painting trips.
What would that look like?
That would look like me hitting every national park in the continental United States. 2 years ago, I went on a trip with my brother and his two granddaughters. And we ended up at the Grand Canyon on my birthday. And my birthday present was I took my painting stuff and went off and painted the Grand Canyon all day. And oh boy, would I love to go back there. Oh boy, would I love to go back there. But there's a lot of places in the United States that I'd like to go to and do some painting. And until I got laid off, every year I would go off on a painting trip. One year I went down to the Shenandoah Valley and painted in the national park there. one year I went to the Delaware Water Gap,
Hmm.
which is not, there's a reason why it's a national recreation area and not a national park. You had to work a little harder to find things to paint in a national recreation area. You turn around and you're clobbered by the views everywhere you go in the national park. So that's in 5 or 6 years, that's what I'd like to be doing. Will I be doing it? Probably not. I'll probably just be doing what I'm doing now, which is going on little, throwing my painting stuff in the car, and I paint down on the Cape. There's plenty of stuff to paint on the Cape. There's plenty of stuff to paint in Rhode Island. Very pretty and very charming. Everything about that state is small, so it's like charming little views. I go up to Maine. I haven't been to Vermont in a while, but I've painted a fair amount in New Hampshire and in Maine. So yeah, I like to paint landscapes.
When you do that, would you rather go out by yourself, or are you okay with going with a group of people?
I don't mind going with a group of people, but I also don't mind going by myself. And I've found myself in a position where I'm like taking friends and making them go with me, because if I don't make the decision for them, it won't happen. And if somebody wants to go with me, that's fine. But I'm perfectly happy. I camp out and I car camp and I paint, and that's fine with me.
Here's a thought. If you started locally, and maybe by locally, I mean like Massachusetts, right? And found 10 or 15 places that you could go to. And you organized, maybe like 1 or 2 places a week, or I don't know, something. And you put a little group of, you had people pay to come, and you basically would take them and go paint with them at, this little tour. That might be a way to test it and see if, ultimately what I'm thinking is that might be a way for you to then ultimately fund bigger trips to other places and begin to expand to these other parks and things by taking the responsibility of organizing it, putting it together, all those things, and then charging a fee that would ultimately get you into those spots. Just a thought. Yeah, man. Well, that's cool. I when you do that, do you think like with your plein air paintings and stuff, do you want to take those and put them into a book form like you did with the Panhandlers?
I don't know. No, I'd rather see them hanging on people's walls.
Okay.
I'd rather, put them in a book. I suppose I could, but I'd rather sell them.
Cool. And how big are they normally?
They range from tiny to not very big.
Okay. So like under 10 inches?
Sometimes. I've done paintings that were 1 inch by 2 inch.
That's called a brushstroke.
Yeah. Well, it's a challenge. Well, actually, a couple of years ago.
Why would you do something that small?
Okay, a couple of years ago, I was painting in Boston Common, and I did a very nice painting, and I finished it up, and I realized that I'd left out all the pedestrians. I hadn't done any of the people. So I pulled out a teeny tiny little 1 inch by 2 inch piece of paper that I had taped down and gessoed. And in 10 minutes, I did a little painting of people strolling around. And it looks very nice. I was perfectly happy with it. But yeah, yes, when you're investing a lot of time and effort in something and it's 2 inches, 1 inch by 2 inch, then you have to wonder whether it was worthwhile. And that's part of the process of landscape painting is you're looking at stuff and going, am I going to invest 3 or 4 hours of hard work on this view, which isn't that interesting? You'd rather find something that really blows you away, and then you're happy to invest the time and effort in it. But then sometimes it doesn't matter. I just did a painting of a solar farm, solar collectors near my house, just because I thought it was really interesting what they look like. And it's like a 4x8 painting. And it took me about 3 hours, and I'm perfectly happy with it. Will I ever sell it? Probably not. But I paint what interests me, and that can be almost anything.
That's cool. That's cool. And when you do that, is it more about feeling the painting experience, or are you trying to communicate something, or
It's completely about the painting experience. It's completely about looking the process of making a painting. And as I said, my brain is going a mile a minute when I'm painting because I'm looking at it and say, how do I draw that? How do I paint that? What's the difference between the drawing of that and the painting of that? Can I do it in one brush stroke? Can I do it in 2 brush strokes? Does this color in this brush stroke say what I want it to say? Oops. I make a lot of mistakes while I'm painting. There's an awful lot of oops. There's an awful lot of
you draw with your.
I can scratch that. I can fix that.
You draw with your paintbrush then?
I generally start off with, I paint a lot on stretched etching paper.
Okay.
Just good paper. I've also been using canvas pads and pulling those off, and I tape them onto a board and gesso them if necessary. And I usually start off by doing a drawing using cerulean blue. In fact, all my paintings start off as a sketch in cerulean blue. The reason I use cerulean blue is it's a really weak color. So it tends to disappear into the painting as you're working on it. And also it's a very cool color. And I find it's a lot easier to warm up a cool painting than it is to cool down a warm painting. So I like to keep it on the cool side.
Makes sense.
Which, especially in landscapes, it's all blues and greens. So
yeah,
those are cool colors. So
that's a really good tip, man. That's really smart. Wow, that's really cool. So, Mark, before I ask you how people can connect with you, we have to get back to your Armenian conversation.
Okay.
And let's talk about some food.
You want to talk about Armenian food?
I don't care. We can talk about Boston food, Armenian food, Jewish food. I don't care.
Oh, Jewish food. Armenian. Well, my wife makes the best rice pilaf you've ever eaten.
What is it called?
Rice pilaf. Pilaf.
Describe it.
Rice pilaf is you take some noodles and you cook them in butter. And then you put them into a pot with rice, and instead of using water, you use chicken broth. And then you cook it until it's just right, and then you eat it, and it's absolutely delicious.
Wow. So rice and noodles.
Rice and noodles.
In chicken broth.
Mostly, and in chicken broth.
Now, is that like chicken broth? Like, does she like boil the chicken and make her?
Oh, no. She could, but no. She's got a particular brand of chicken broth that she likes.
Nice.
Um, uh,
So what would an Armenian breakfast look like?
sujuk and eggs. This is what we. This is. I enjoy holidays with my wife's family
Mm-hmm.
because the Armenian delicacies come out, and sujuk is it's a sausage,
Mm.
and my mother-in-law and her friend used to make it themselves, and they'd have
What?
like an old sock hanging on their back porch with meat and spices in it. Uh, Sujuk is very good. Pastırma is very good. Uh, the shish kebab is to die for. The
Mm.
lamb, they know how to
Yes.
cook. They know how to cook lamb. Um, on the other hand, uh, my mother-in-law, my father-in-law passed away years ago.
Mm.
My mother-in-law used to make him a dish called pacha.
Pacha.
Pacha is everything left over from the lamb that you didn't want to eat, thrown into a
Oh, it's like a
pot.
lamb hot dog.
Thrown into a pretty much yes, the lamb lips, thrown into a pot with about 10 heads of garlic and boiled until it has the consistency of glue. And it's the most disgusting thing you've ever smelled or looked at in your life. And my father-in-law would start eating this, and the sweat would break out on his forehead as he was going, "Oh, this is so good! Oh, this is so good!" But it was pretty
He was
disgusting.
adding his own spice to it. There's a thing in Puerto Rican culture called pastele. It's kind of like a Puerto Rican tamale,
Uh,
and when I was a little kid, I remember seeing the older ladies making it, and it would take hours and hours and hours.
uh-huh.
And they would take plantains, which are bananas, and they would smash it up into this thing, and then they take these big banana leaves and put it in this mixture inside these banana leaves. The tamales are usually made out of corn, and then they're put inside the corn husks. But like
Mhm.
in the islands, we would use bananas, and then you put like a piece of like chicken or something in the inside, and then you roll it up in this banana leaf, tie it, and then you boil it for like 8 hours or some ridiculous amount of
Mhm.
time. And for all of the hard work that they put into this thing, you
It
take
gets
it.
scarfed down in 2 seconds flat.
Well, no, you throw up 2 seconds flat. It was the most disgusting tasting thing in the
Oh,
world, right?
really? Oh,
I hated them, and so, but it's a Puerto Rican delicacy, right?
uh-huh.
So when I went to Puerto Rico, we stayed at this hostel, and the lady who owned it, her name was Maddie and Matilda or something, but we would call her Maddie. And she's like, tomorrow you and Brian, you come up and I make you pastele, right? And literally, man, that entire night I was terrified. I was trying to figure out how to escape the house. And I couldn't. And I was like, oh my God, I don't want to be rude, but I can't stand these things. And so the next morning, I'm like sweating, and my buddy Brian was like, "Yeah, man!" Like he eats anything and everything.
Uh,
And so we go up, and I'm like, "Oh my God!" We're sitting at this table, and in probably in a lot of cultures, but in Puerto Rican culture, like grandmas, I don't think they ever wear anything but like this damn long like grandma nightgown. And so
mhm.
she's in her kitchen, and she got this big old knife, right? And she opens something, she just stabs the can, right? Like everything she was doing was with this big old knife. And she she then serves us these pasteles, right? And I'm just like, oh my God, I don't know what to do. And then she goes over to the the cupboard, and she's fiddling around, and she comes out with like the biggest bottle of ketchup you've ever seen. And she puts it down. And like Puerto Ricans put ketchup on everything.
Uh-uh.
Um and I'm like, huh? Like I didn't know you put ketchup on these things. I put some ketchup on the plate. I was terrified. I dipped it in. Oh my God, it was so good. Like without the ketchup, it is the nastiest thing ever. With ketchup, it is. I was like, I went back for seconds. I was like, oh my God, this is delicious.
I thought it was going to be a story like there's an Armenian dish called Monty,
Uh-huh.
and they're little raviolis,
Okay.
and they're little raviolis, and the entire family, not me, but my wife, her brothers, her sister, her mom, both my kids, they would spend like 8 hours rolling out the dough and making these little raviolis and pinching them together, and they're cooked in chicken broth again,
Mm-hmm.
and you serve it in chicken broth with sour cream and this powder called sumac, which is like the linings from cherry pits, dried out and ground up. It's called sumac.
Okay.
And
interesting flavor.
They would spend 6 hours making this stuff, and it would be gone in 2.5 minutes.
Wow.
Because it's just that good.
Wow.
Now, on the other hand, my mom was the worst cook on the face of the earth. Two stories. One is one day she made spaghetti, and it was so bad that none of us would eat it. My dad, my two brothers, and my mom are sitting at the dining room table, and she put it out, and it was awful. And so none of us would eat it. And she said, well, if you won't eat it, I know someone who will. And she put it on the floor for the dog. And Snoopy, our dog's name was Snoopy, came over, sniffed at it, turned around, and walked away. So not even the dog would eat her spaghetti.
Our masterpiece.
Sauce.
How do you mess up spaghetti?
Oh, she did. And the other one, well, this is kind of indicative of her approach. You remember Carnation Instant Breakfast?
Yes.
Yeah, too expensive. So she made her own Carnation Breakfast, which was a raw egg, and some milk, and Nestle's Quick in the blender.
That's gross.
And then she'd give it to me on my way out the door, and I would drink it, and that was my breakfast. And about halfway up the hill on my way to the bus, the aftertaste would kick in. But no, she was not a good cook. So
wow,
it's been a pleasure living with a good cook for a change.
Yeah, my mom, when we were younger, my dad's the cook out of them, and my mom makes this really good chili, but they really don't eat rice. But when she would cook rice, it was the nastiest, most rubberiest thing ever, and it was just horrendous. And she was my foster mom, so like I came from, when I was younger, we were Spanish culture, so we eat rice all the time. And I remember eating like red rice. I didn't know how it was made. I didn't know what sazon was. When I was a young, maybe 11, 12, and so on our birthdays they would say, hey, you can have anything you want. And so I'm like, okay. So one year I'm like, I remember this Puerto Rican delicacy. It was orange rice, like red rice, and I guess they call it yellow rice, and sunny side up eggs. Right. Now we had 7 brothers, and every time we had a birthday party, everybody was like, pizza, right? I had one brother be like, beef stroganoff. And it's like, oh, right. My mom would cook that. But here I am. I'm like, let's have scrambled, like sunny side up eggs with rice. And she couldn't cook rice. Nobody knew like, what the heck? Why we're eating eggs with rice? I remember I tried to make it, and I thought, well, they made it red, so let's just. And this is what we did: we used ketchup to try to make it red. That didn't
Ooh,
work.
yeah.
Once I actually used Kool-Aid because I was trying to figure out how they made this red rice, and Kool-Aid. It was so disgusting, but
Like cherry Kool-Aid, right? Okay.
yeah. Grape rice, no, but yeah, it just she just wasn't a good cook, and so it was like, so when I uh, found my wife, uh, she probably is the best cook that I remember when we were first dating. Um, and there was a time where I was going to go off to this art school and she was going to go to this other school. And we were thinking, we're going to be like hours away. We might as well just kind of split up.
Hmm.
And so I went over to have that conversation with her, and she cooked this chicken. And I ate this chicken, and I'm just like, I would be a fool. And so we were together for the next 10 years or something because of that chicken. And, I'll tell you, it was sad. I knew the day that my relationship with her was over.
Hmm.
When one day she came home with some food for her and the kids and forgot about me. And
Ooh.
it just destroyed me because for some reason, food, man, it binds people, right? It's an
Yeah.
intimacy. And and we haven't been together in 5 years. Uh, totally still have tremendous respect and even love for her.
Hmm.
Um, and one day she invited me over. She's married and has a baby now and stuff. Um, and one day she invited me over and she was cooking something, and she had family there and stuff. And I ate the food. I'm like, oh my God, right? Like I'm more jealous that her new husband is eating her food than anything else. Let's say, right? Like, I think I'm like, oh my God, like, uh anyways, and I'll never know if I'll ever have that again. That level of quality, but if you have someone in your life, or if you yourself can, you know, love people with food
Hmm.
at that level, well, you know what? I'm going to say it now. I don't need to wait on anybody. I just need to make sure that I'm producing at that quality, and that's it.
Hmm. Yeah.
Um, it's incredible. It really is an incredible joy to have in your life. Someone who can cook really, really well. So I'm happy for you, man.
Thank you.
On that note, how can people connect with you, man?
They can connect with me by going to my website, which is www.ipaintwhatisee.com. All one word, IPAINTWHATISEE.com. I paint what I see.
I
Because
have to. I have
that's
to
kind
ask
of what
you.
I do.
I have to ask you. How long have you had that URL?
Do you know? Well, not that long.
Really?
And I was very, very surprised that it was available. I was super surprised that it was available. So I bought it, and I also bought ipaintwhatisee.org, but I haven't done anything with
Sure.
that.
That's that's a. I
I would
saw that URL. I was like, "What? You got that like 20 years ago and like held on to it?"
no. I mean, not that long ago. Maybe 5 years ago. So
That's cool. That's really really cool. Uh, Mark, I'm going to do something that I normally don't do. At the end of these podcasts, I usually put on a little ad for my Core 80. But I'm going to take a minute and just talk to the audience real quick, and let you guys know this summer, 2018, the week after the 4th of July, I'm running a 6-week course. We're going to meet once a day, once a week. And what we're going to tackle is this idea of how can you convey emotion through line and brushstroke. And so over the 6 weeks, we're going to tackle 20 specific emotions that you can deliberately trigger in a viewer when they look at your work, just by knowing how to move their eye through the image. And so if you're interested in that, go to donvictorart.com/summer. And you have to put a www in there. So reach out to me if you're interested in participating in that experience. So cool. Marc, it was great talking with you, man.
Great talking with you.
I love your stories, and we'll keep in touch. All right?
Very good. Thank you very much, Don. I really appreciate it.
Yep. Be well. Bye.
All righty.